hugely important debate going on in the chamber right now about foreign aid or overseas development. And unfortunately, I am on the call list to speak, but I'm number 55, and it's becoming very apparent that we're not going to get to number 55. I'm not going to get a chance to have my say in the chamber today, but what I am going to do is record this for constituents to hear my view. I'm going to write to the Minister following this debate to put this across as well. I think there's two important points to make in this debate. The first is the need and the significant need, the inequalities, the poverty that exists in this country, particularly in the wake of the pandemic, the many challenges that people in Mansfield and places like it face in terms of health inequalities, skills inequalities, unemployment, and all of the many social challenges that exist. And in many cases where we are in need of more services, where we're in need of more support. And I know that it jars with a lot of residents to see that need here in the UK and see us borrowing to give away money to other countries, particularly in the wake of the pandemic. It's so important, and the government is right to reduce foreign aid, certainly for the meantime, while we deliver on some of those local priorities. The first priority for government has to be, for the UK government, has to be UK citizens and tackling the need that exists here. And sometimes I think it's very easy for some of my parliamentary colleagues who represent very affluent parts of the country not to see that need that exists in the UK and only see the need abroad. And I think that's a mistake. I think my constituents would feel and often contact me to tell me that they feel very strongly that charity begins at home. The second part of this, and perhaps the more pertinent part to the debate actually, because lots of colleagues in the chamber will say what I've just said, I'm sure. The second part of this is actually that the system is fundamentally broken. In many ways, talking about whether you put in 0.5% or 0.7% into the foreign aid, the overseas development system as things stand, is like talking about how much petrol you put in a car with no wheels. It doesn't matter. The fundamental problem is your lack of wheels, and until you fix that, it's not going anywhere. The same is true of this. The fundamental problem is that the system is broken. And it doesn't matter whether you put in 0.5 or 0.7, the system remains broken. In fact, it's a nonsense to have a fixed percentage in that way. Some people have argued it gives certainty. It doesn't, because actually as a percentage rather than a number in pounds, it goes up and down. It fluctuates every year. So you either end up at the end of a financial year with more money than you can administer efficiently, or not enough money to deliver on your priorities, neither of which is good. And in those scenarios where we have more money than we can administer efficiently, I've heard firsthand from ministers and former ministers in that department, people who've worked in that sector, about how we scrabble around at the end of the financial year to find things to spend it on, to give it away to the European Union or the United Nations, to spend on their priorities rather than ours, to chuck money out the door to meet an arbitrary target rather than to spend it effectively. That's how we end up giving money to countries with space programs. That's how we end up funding the Nigerian spy skills. That is not the kind of spending that my constituents want to see. I think we all recognise, and I do see the benefit of foreign aid in disaster relief, in humanitarian efforts, in playing our part in the world. And God knows we've done more than most supporting the international vaccine rollout, for example, which doesn't count towards our foreign aid budget, for the record. But until you fix that fundamental problem, until you fix that system where we're not collaborating effectively with countries around the world, where we're withdrawing £4 billion from the system. The US is putting 14 billion in, and yet the gap remains where we've withdrawn it. Where's that collaboration? Where's that communication about working effectively on those shared priorities? It doesn't seem to exist. And they're the fundamental challenges that we're not going to fix by arguing about 0.5 or 0.7. It's the wrong debate to have. The real debate we need to bring forward is about the effectiveness and the efficiency of our foreign aid structures, of how it's managed and administered. Until we get that right, the numbers are almost not relevant. Let's deal with the big picture. Let's fix the car before we decide how much petrol to put in it. So they are the points that I want to put across to the Minister. They're the points I want to make to you constituents today, and I will send those in writing to the Minister this afternoon. We'll see what he's got to say. But I'll be backing the government today in their quest to reduce foreign aid spending from 0.7 to 0.5% of GDP, on the basis that we have so many priorities here at home that we need to tackle, that we need to spend that money on. Are we making very clear to government that that's a short-term aim? It shouldn't go back up, but actually fundamentally we should fix the problems with a system that just doesn't work.